Deanne Criswell. So she's been with us since the morning. We've traveled. We started the day in Tallahassee, getting an update on the most recent events that have happened in the aftermath of Hurricane Ian. We went down to Southwest Florida for the second day in a row. We were able to do a little bit more extensive touring of some of the damage that we saw. And you have places like Fort Myers Beach, Sanibel, some of those areas really where the front line got the massive storm surge and extensive damage throughout there. You also have Charlotte County had damage, north part of Naples and Collier County. One of the things that we're working on and is having staged all the power and everything is the restoration of services. Right now, statewide, 85% of customers have power, and the main outages are, of course, in Lee and Charlotte counties have the most, as well as Hardy. But then you also have about half out in Collier. You have about half out in Sarasota. And then it really gets better in many other parts of the state until you get to Seminole's about a third out or 40% out. Volusia's about 50% out. Flagler is probably about 40 to 50% out. But then it gets much better as you get to St. John's and Jacksonville and Nassau County. And so there was over 42,000 folks staged. They went in immediately to try to minimize those disruptions. And really, they're adding more customers back online every hour. I think it's probably, Kevin, would you say about 100,000 every hour or two? So we feel good about most of that. I would say that the biggest challenge with power restoration is going to be in those areas that bore the brunt of the Category 4 plus, almost Category 5 impact, where it may have uprooted some of the existing infrastructure. Now that will be fixed. It's just not something that gets fixed in 24 or 48 hours. And so there has been some damage in Lee, some damage in Charlotte counties, but there's also been a lot of the infrastructure that was able to make it through. So I think now actually Lee, they got about 20% back with power, which was quite frankly more than I would have anticipated this soon after such a major impact. We were able to go just kind of look around. We flew, we did a press conference. We met with some people that had lost homes and businesses and, people that had been in that community for decades and decades. So it's sad to lose your belongings anyways, of course, but there's a lot of history in that part of the state and many parts of our state. So you see that it's hard to just replace that. So there's going to be things that need to do infrastructure-wise, bridges, some of the other stuff down there. But I was pleasantly surprised to see 48 hours after a massive impact, I saw Publix's reopening. I saw Wawa's opening. I saw all this happening in Lee County. And so the quicker that the broader population can get back to normal, that's going to make it easier to help those who have been displaced. We also toured over in Central Florida with the Seminole County Sheriff's Office, some of the flooding there. And I can tell you what we saw in Central Florida was more standing water than what we saw in Southwest Florida where the big storm surge came in. It's just because of the way they have the Caloosahatchee, the inlets, the sand, for whatever reason, that really dissipated over the last 24 to 36 hours. You go in places in Central Florida, there's a lot of standing water. Some of these places, had water still up a couple feet on some of the homes. They're bracing for more impacts as you see some things with the St. John's and other things that happen. So we knew there would be flooding, but to have more standing water 200 plus miles away than that is saying something. And then we've seen the impacts in this community up here in Northeast Florida before. We are going to be Kevin's going to be working with Fema about potentially expanding individual assistance eligibility beyond the counties that have already been added. So right now it's Southwest Florida into Central Florida. It stops before you get up into St. John's. I don't think Flagler or Volusia are in it either. So you look, Flagler, Volusia, they've had some big impacts too. So that's something that we're going to be working with them on. We think that will be something that will be helpful for the residents of this area. Fuel, by and large, has done really well. Even with the ports having to shut down because of the storm, you have fuel flowing in. It was good to see these gas stations open in Southwest Florida. That's something that we've had storms in the past where people were without fuel for weeks or a long time, and that's a pain. It makes it harder for people to get back. So we appreciate the attention that's been paid on that. And then In terms of like telecom service, it is getting better in Southwest Florida. They are putting more towers in because of the towers that have been destroyed. But I would say that, all the companies, I think, now are allowing the other customers to roam on their network. And so that makes it very helpful. So if you're down there, don't try to do Wi-Fi calling. That's not up where it needs to be. Just do normal calling with roaming. And if you're Verizon, you can't get that, you may be able to get AT&T. And so that's something that's very, very important. I want Kevin to come up and give an update, and then we'll have the administrator come up as well. Kevin?
Thank you, Governor. Thank you for your leadership all day long today. Here in St. Johns County, St. Augustine, I know some of the public safety officials know this is my home. So I'm coming back home. This is not the way that I like to come home on the weekends, but I'm here to help not just the state of Florida, but also my hometown. So we're out here walking the streets. Myself, the administrator, the regional administrator, we're sitting here talking about, different aspects of this particular neighborhood, other areas around St. Johns County, to potentially get them into the declaration for individual assistance. I think one of the things that we have in this particular community that I want to just talk about, because we don't get an awful lot of time to talk about this, is just down the road here we have a house that's being raised with FEMA funding as a part of the Flood Mitigation Assistance Grant Program. There's a similar program called the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program that will be coming as a part of this particular storm disaster. I know they're complicated and complex grants to work through. They take a little bit of time, but at the same time, if you're in a situation where you continually flood, then we can elevate your home. And those are good ideas to do in a neighborhood just like this. So highly encourage you folks in this area to consider those programs. I know the city and the county will be reaching out to individuals that want participants in that program. So please continue to be a part of that program. As the governor has mentioned, infrastructure is we're seeing the results of infrastructure hardening. The chief was telling me that some of the lift stations and whatnot were more resilient in this storm than they were in Matthew. So things are, we're getting better at what we do as far as hurricane response. If there's things that you need, please make sure you reach out to your local emergency management agency, reach out to the fire chief, the police chief here, make sure that we know about them, get those things rolled up to us. We're going to be here to continue to support not just St. Johns County and the city of St. Augustine, but all Floridians across the state. So, Governor, appreciate your leadership on this. Thank you.
Okay, and joining us from FEMA is our administrator, Deanne Criswell.
Thank you. I really appreciated the opportunity today to join the governor and Director Guthrie to get eyes on firsthand. It's really important for me to be able to come into a community after an event like this so I can get an idea of what the impacts are. You see a lot of the images on the news, but there's nothing that replaces being able to see and talk to people and hear what they're going through. I'll tell you some of the things that I heard throughout the day today was how the neighbors are helping neighbors. They're really jumping in and helping each other out. We just heard a great story here, but we've heard that across the state today. And the absolute heroic efforts that the first responders put forward in those first few days. I just want to thank all of them for everything that they've done. As you heard the governor say, with different programs that are available for individual assistance with FEMA, President Biden did sign the initial disaster declaration late Wednesday night. That authorized 9 counties for individual assistance. Thursday, early afternoon, I believe, we added 4 more counties. We are continuing to do assessments. One of the reasons that I am here with the governor today is to get eyes on, to see the damages. So we will continue to add more counties as we understand what the impacts the communities across Florida have experienced as a result of this storm. And so as you move into the recovery, we're going to continue to be here to support the governor and Director Guthrie and any requests that they have to make sure that we're able to jumpstart the recovery process, but also to be with you here as you go through the rebuilding and the reconstruction phases. So thank you.
Okay. All right. Any questions for anybody?
Yeah, Governor, I know it's very early to tell, but is there an idea how much is the cost so far that we've seen?
All right, so you've been listening there to Governor Ron DeSantis and to the FEMA administrator, and the big headline coming out of that briefing as they are on the ground there in St. Augustine is that Governor DeSantis says the state is going to be asking the federal government to extend the FEMA assistance eligibility here to Northeast Florida, to counties impacted by Hurricane Ian. That includes St. Johns County possibly, and Flagler County and Volusia County, all areas that the FEMA administrator says could be added to that FEMA assistance. So we will continue to keep you updated on that. But the governor there today touring the areas hit hard by flooding caused by Hurricane Ian.